we're going to continue looking at our Cthulhu arpeggiation sequences. I'm actually going to duplicate this track and copy down the MIDI because I actually quite like the sequence that I came up with there, so I want to save that one. Now I've just done a little bit of work on this track. I just had a little play with the bass line using the part that was generated in Captain Plugins. I just did some little amendments to it and also just changed up the drum pattern slightly and also just moved around the keys just to try out an idea that I could kind of hear. So let me just play you how it's sounding. I've just muted the vocal for now. Yeah, so I quite like the groove that I've come up with there. Now let's carry on looking at our ARP sequence. So we'll open up Cthulhu and let's look at what we've got here. So this is what we were left with. Let's just take that tape delay off for now. I'll put a little sidechain plugin on here, LFO tool, to allow us to get a little bit of pumping going on with the groove. Okay, so what I'm going to do is show you the next tab along here, which is random selection. So what we can do here is you can see the notes that we have applied here with the little arrows on them. We can randomize positively or negatively. So you can see this is stepped, and this is the number of notes or the range of notes in which we're going to randomize. So if we wanted to randomize positively by 2 notes, we can do that, or 4 notes. So let's put in some random positions for some of our steps. So let's hear how that sounds. So it's basically encouraging the chance that we're going to have some happy accidents appearing. So it's a good thing to play with, again, to help you automatically come up with melodies. Okay, so let's just reset these values. And let's have a look at the next tab along, which is octave. Now this is going to allow us to, as the name would suggest, push things up and down in octaves. It gets to the point where we're actually out of range of what the instrument is capable of creating. We can also go negatively. Pretty cool. So you can hear that is added some really nice extra interest to this sound, and could be something that we maybe play with for one section of the track just to add a bit of contrast into things. Okay, so let's just reset these octaves. Now the next tab along we have is pitch. Now you see as I click on pitch, these numbers become illuminated. Now these relate to the scale degrees within our scale. So this is a music theory hacks course. Obviously this kind of relies on you actually understanding a little bit of music theory. But this refers to the notes in a scale. So let's say this was C major, it would be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, making up C major. Now what we can do is choose, let's take these all off, which scale degree is going to be transposed. So let's say we chose the root note, and then we can determine by how much is going to be transposed. So, and on which step. So let's say we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scale degrees up. Let's try it on here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scale degrees down. Let's see what that comes up with. Okay, let's try adding in some other scale degrees. So the difficult thing to work out is that obviously when I had it on the root note, this selection we had here was not playing the root note at that point. So it's quite a hard parameter to work with, or quite a hard feature to work with. But you can see what I've done here is worked quite simply. I've got all the notes selected, and I've changed these positively and negatively by 5 semitones, meaning that whatever note is being played on these 2 steps is going to be transposed. Let's try some more steps for this. Let's try the transposition to be a bit different. Let's take it off. So it's quite a hard feature to work with, I'd say, this one, but you could come up with some interesting results this way. Okay, so let's have a look at the next tab. Okay, so let's go across to this tab here. Now, these next 3 tabs are not kind of strictly music theory related functions, but let's just cover them quickly anyway. So I'm just going to open up our retro synth patch, and I'm going to change velocity to affect the filter cutoff, increase the amount. Now with this option here, we can actually drag to transmit velocity on the steps. Now, negatively and positively both work. So if we add this up positively, we're going to be increasing the cutoff, and negatively if we bring it down like so. Something to bear in mind is with this patch is that the envelope is being used to open the filter completely. So actually positive is not going to make that big a difference, but negative will. So let's use this feature negatively, and we should hear some movement taking place on the filter cutoff. Let's turn the resonance up a bit. So you can definitely hear that at work. Okay, I'm actually going to leave that on. Now this is the gate tab, which allows us to change the gate time. So it's going to make certain notes shorter. So let's just throw some down on here. Now this is a little bit difficult to hear because we have the gate lower anyway. But you can really hear it at work there. So some of the notes are longer than others. Okay, and there's a late tab here, which allows us to bring some of the hits a little bit earlier or a little bit later to create a kind of custom groove. We get a nice kind of shuffle or swing being added to the arpeggiated sequence. Okay, so let's have a look at this harmony tab now. So we've got all the steps initiated now, just with the default selection. Now something that's very important to make sure of when we're using the harmony tab is that we can actually play extra notes. So I'll just increase the voices we can play in this plugin, the retro synth. And now what we can do is we can add transposed notes on top as a harmony. So let's say we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 semitones here. Let's do 5 semitones down. 3, 4, 5. You'll hear we'll add harmony notes on the top. So with a bit of experimentation, we could get something which hopefully will sound good. Or not. Let's try up there. So you can hear those notes are being layered on the top. Now, something which is quite useful for this is that we can actually use this keyboard here to determine notes that aren't going to be played. So we're working in A minor. So actually what we can do is click on the black notes, which aren't in the scale of A minor, although we are using some chords in this track that are outside A minor. But by clicking on those black notes, we're actually only allowing the arpeggiator to play the white notes. So wherever we put these, they're always going to be playing white notes. Now sometimes the notes are going to be hitting one of these black notes, of course, but we've told Cthulhu not to play them. But what we can also do if we click again is choose whether we want the notes to be transposed downwards or alternatively transposed upwards, like so. So this is really cool because it means that we've got a way of making sure that whatever we do, we're going to be allowing the notes to stay within our scale. Okay, let's just take these harmony notes off and let's reset this so we can play all the notes. Okay, so one last thing I want to look on here is the chords option. Now this allows us to arpeggiate the chord itself. Let's turn down the gate time. Let's just put on the re-trigger. Now this means that it's going to be re-triggering every time we get a MIDI note, which means we won't get those gaps playing. Let's just play with some of the parameters here. Let's try in the track. Pretty cool. So you can hear that using Cthulhu to arpeggiate the whole chord sequence, we get quite a nice little vibe going there as well. Again, let's try it without. Got a little bit of tape delay on there as well. So it really adds a nice kind of extra layer to the track idea, I think. So that's Cthulhu, a great way of creating melodies and arpeggiated sequences. Now, obviously, we have the whole functionality of playing chords within Cthulhu as well, but we've done that within Captain plugin. So we've really just focused on the arpeggiation aspect. But if Cthulhu is something you're interested in finding out more about, then make sure you check out my video series dedicated to Cthulhu. Okay, so to recap in this video, we looked at our top tabs up here. So we can randomize, setting a range either positively or negatively. We can change the octave as well, that the notes play back in. We can also choose to transpose certain scale degrees that we can choose down here. We can also create a modulation amount for velocity as well within our arpeggiator. We have gate times we can change, which obviously will affect our global gate time here. We can introduce groove by pushing steps back or bringing them forward in time. And we can also add harmony to different steps as well, using the harmony option here. And remember, we can actually choose to take notes out that aren't going to play. And this will refer to anything we're doing within the arpeggiator. So when we were doing the pitch option here as well, if we were creating notes that are outside of the key, we can choose for them not to be played. And we can also choose to transpose them positively or negatively to make sure that we don't just have no note playing at that step. Okay, so now we've covered the arpeggiation aspect of Cthulhu. In the next video, we're going to have a look at converting audio to MIDI using Scalar. Thanks for watching.